Fog curls along red cobblestone, concealing unseen footprints. A lantern flickers behind fractured glass, refusing warmth. Leather-bound journals breathe faintly on hardwood shelves. Rusted pipes hum beneath the ceiling, bowed by time. Shadows gather round corners, pausing without acknowledgement. Cold rain etches hieroglyphs across forgotten rooftops. Footsteps echo inside vacant hallways, hesitant yet deliberate. A single glove rests atop a tarnished radiator, abandoned. Clock hands tremble against polished brows, measuring patience. Smoke drifts slowly from an unlit fireplace, suspended in anticipation. Whispers into doves like weary sentinels to the darkness, finding solace in restraint. Steel doors sigh softly under unseen tension. Windows mirror unclimbed reflections, hesitant, vigilant. Time bends around measured breath, tethered to composure. Cobblestones hum beneath silent vigilance. Raindrums, rhythms, only solitude comprehends. A distant bell tilts toward quiet reckoning. Ink stains map hidden dialogues across leather creases. Midnight descends on alleys lined with muted lamplight. Curtains sway without permission, brushing against dust motes. Keys rattle inside cold pockets, impatient for departure. For bridges span rivers veiled in mist, whispering secrets. Brass handles cool beneath callous palms, testing resolve. Shattered mirrors or fragments of untold agreements. Foghorns resonate across distant piers, punctuating absence. Tobacco scent lingers in drawers untouched for weeks. Embers hover briefly, suspended between presence and void. Whispers circle empty stairwells like weary sentinels. Eyes adjust to darkness, finding solace in restraint. Steel doors sigh softly under unseen tension. Windows mirror unclaimed reflections, hesitant, vigilant. Time bends around measured breath, tethered to composure. Cobblestones hum beneath silent vigil. Raindrums, rhythms, only solitude comprehends. A distant bell tilts toward quiet reckoning. Shuttered panes tremble beneath winds, careful insistence. A pocket watch counts moments in subdued protest. Footfalls tap against marble, speaking in moisture silence. Iron gates murmur along forgotten courtyards, reluctant. Those cradle faint warmth left behind by absence. Lantern smoke twist or ceiling beams, reluctant witnesses. Railings gleam faintly, reflecting hesitations, patience. Velvet chairs cradle unspoken declarations, awaiting consent. Brick walls exhale decades of restraint, confession. Lantern oil glows beneath shadows, consumed by anticipation. Whispers circle empty stairwells out like weary sentinels. Eyes adjust to darkness, finding solace in restraint. Steel doors sigh softly under unseen tension. Windows mirror unclaimed reflections, hesitant, vigilant. Time bends around measured breath, tethered to composure. Cobblestones hum beneath silent vigil. Raindrums, rhythms, only solitude comprehends. A distant bell tilts toward quiet reckoning. Cobblestones glitter faintly under early dawn haze. Candlewick smoldering sconces along narrow corridors. Iron hinges murmur beneath patient heads. Leather straps coil silently beside open letters. Brass knobs glint under cautious sunlight. Weary fog retreats slowly, revealing pathways without judgment. Smoke from a chimney drifts toward blank sky. Hesitant, wooden floor sigh beneath deliberate gate. Unobserved, glass shards catch light and fragmented acknowledgement. The horizon leans gently into muted expectation. Whispers circle empty stairwells like weary sentinels. Eyes adjust to darkness, finding solace in restraint. Steel doors sigh softly under unseen tension. Windows mirror unclaimed reflections, hesitant, vigilant. Time bends around, measured breath, tethered to composure. Cobblestones underneath silent vision. Raindrums, rhythms, only solitude comprehends a distant bell. Tales toward quiet reckoning. Lanterns pulse with quiet insistence, marking hidden passageways. Walls remember murmurs carried across decades. Shadows retreat without acknowledgement, leaving space for thought. Embers settle into ash, honoring patience. Footsteps dissolve into silence, leaving questions unanswered. Time exhales beneath high arches, suspended deliberately. Whisper fade into corridors only memory can navigate. Eyes embrace darkness, discovering composure's reward. Still gaze close. Fractures across cobblestone alleys. Ash curls from forgotten embers in silent rooms. Rain etches signatures on the cracked leather seats. A brass doorknob chills fingers that linger too long. Shuttered windows without consent. Footsteps echo through corridors of abandoned memory. A velvet scarf sways beneath lamplight, unclaimed. Shadow faces dissolve behind frosted glass panels. Cold iron railings hum beneath the weight of quiet. Time exhales slowly against cracked porcelain floors. Lonely streets whisper truths no ear can hold. Every glance refracts a promise left unpaid. Chains of expectation rattle inside silent chambers. Midnight sighs beneath bridges suspended by fog. Broken clocks measure heartbeats in imperceptible rhythms. Echoes linger where laughter once sought refuge. Obsidian corners guard secrets without judgment. I walk past mirrors that forget the shape of my patience. Cigarette smoke lingers where footsteps dared not tread. Windows fog with stories of men who vanished quietly. Steel doors resist the pressure of tentative palms. Curtains tremble from winds that memorize every contour. Ink stains settle into leather journals that dream of rain. Street lamps tilt their heads, observing without indulgence. A single glass swings above the bar, untouched. Rust spreads beneath wrought iron gates in measured silence. Floorboards creak as though reluctant to bear witness. A pocket watch ticks against ribs, indifferent to waiting. Lonely streets whisper truths no ear can hold. Every glance refracts a promise left unpaid. Chains of expectation rattle inside silent chambers. Midnight sighs beneath bridges suspended by fog-broken clocks. Measure heartbeats in imperceptible rhythms. Echoes linger where laughter once saw refuge. Obsidian corners guard secrets without judgment. I walk past mirrors that forget the shape of my patience. Fog drapes lampposts in garments of obscurity. Door handles shiver beneath fingertips, seeking solace. Rain collects in hollow sculptures of forgotten parks. Cobblestones glisten under boots that choose discretion. Shadows bend around corners with unspoken intent. Smoke drifts from chimneys that narrate abandoned lives. Curtains sway in apartments that never felt warm. Brass keys rest on tables that remember silent arrivals. Rustling leaves whisper through alleys never named. Lanterns hum softly against ceilings that absorb despair. Lonely streets whisper truths no ear can hold. Every glance refracts a promise left unpaid. Chains of expectation rattle inside silent chambers. Midnight sighs beneath bridges suspended by fog-broken clocks. Measure heartbeats in imperceptible rhythms. Echoes linger where laughter once saw refuge. Obsidian corners guard secrets without judgment. I walk past mirrors that forget the shape of my patience. Creeps through slatted blinds with muted insistence. Coffee cools where hands once sought meaning. Footfalls hesitate across polished stone corridors. Windows reflect skylines that never learned my name. Railings tremble under the weight of solitary journeys. Letters remain unopened upon mahogany desks. Smoke from yesterday drifts through hallways of intent. Keys rattle softly against silent flows of the mind. Shadows retreat slowly from walls that remember nothing. Time folds quietly into corners that demand no reckoning. Lonely streets whisper truths no ear can hold. Every glance refracts a promise left unpaid. Chains of expectation rattle inside silent chambers. Midnight sighs beneath bridges suspended by fog-broken clocks. Measure heartbeats in imperceptible rhythms. Echoes linger where laughter once sought refuge. Obsidian corners guard secrets without judgment. I walk past mirrors that forget the shape of my patience. Extinguished without appeal to memory. Footsteps vanish where water drifts unclaimed. Lanterns remain dark in rooms without expectation. Footsteps dissolve in the streets that never witness arrival. Time exhales heavy retreats into silent corridors. Windows gaze outward, recording nothing. Rest untouched upon tables of quiet resolves. Time bends its spine under deliberate restraint. Lonely streets whisper truths no ear can hold. Every glance refracts a promise left unpaid. Chains of expectation rattle inside silent chambers. Midnight sighs beneath bridges suspended by far broken clocks. Measure heartbeats in imperceptible rhythms. Echoes linger well after once sought refuge. Obsidian corners guard secrets without judgment. I walk past mirrors that forget the shape of my patience. Slightly against rooftops that refuse memory. Ash drifts. Iron fog presses long cobblestone alleys. Streetlights fracture over puddles of forgotten hours. Leather gloves cradle a brass compass unmoving. Embers drift above shuttered cafes unclaimed. Clock hands scrape the ceiling like patient conspirators. The shadow bends around an abandoned lamppost. Cinder smoke curls beneath wrought iron balconies. Unopened envelopes sag with latent confessions. Mirror panes capture whispers of untraveled corridors. Footfalls dissolve into the hush of midnight tires. Chains of restraint cling, soft behind closed doors, just behind red men. Restraint clings softly behind closed doors. Judgment drifts past empty porches with slow disdain. Sapphire reflections linger where no eyes remain. Silence hums heavier than any voice could sustain. A solitary hand straightens fabric over tempered ribs. Velvet darkness humbles the scattered remnants of pride. City wind threads through iron gratings without question. Unseen footsteps measure distance with disciplined patience. Maps, unseen geometries across abandoned bricks. Brass knobs gather fingerprints of unseen travelers. Curtains twitch in rhythm with a distant train sigh. Ash settles like dormant memory on polished wood. Stone gutters cradle droplets like tiny confidants. Lamplight bleeds into corners of unspoken reckoning. Glass shards glimmer with promises that never arrive. Tremors trace along stairwells in measured intervals. Ink dries and journals recording nothing but restraint. Tile floors fleck figures who never existed outside thought. Chains of restraint cling softly behind closed doors. Judgment drifts past empty porches with slow disdain. Sapphire reflections linger where no eyes remain. Silence hums heavier than any voice could sustain. A solitary hand straightens fabric over tempered ribs. Velvet darkness humbles the scattered remnants of pride. City wind threads through iron gratings without question. Unseen footsteps measure distance with disciplined patience. Cobbles trace geometry across forgotten ceilings. A brass key turns quietly in a lock no longer used. Stair rails hold the weight of absent confidences. Window panes tremble under reluctant gusts. Candle flames bend toward nothing and remain steady. A coat collar rises against nocturnal pressure. Footprints vanish under the sheen of damp asphalt. Pockets carry silence deeper than any pocketed coin. Bridges arch over fog when visible tent. Smoke threads weave between street echoes unclaimed. Chains of restraint clink softly behind closed doors. Judgment drifts past empty porches with slow disdain. Sapphire reflections linger where no eyes remain. Silence hums heavier than any voice could sustain. A solitary hand straightens fabric over tempered ribs. Velvet darkness humbles the scattered remnants of pride. City wind threads through iron gratings without question. Unseen footsteps measure distance with discipline, patient. Lanterns shiver against brick like anxious specters. Ashtrays cradle the remains of long-forgotten fires. Railings hum beneath invisible weight of unvoiced truths. Fog drifts across sidewalks with discreet judgment. Coffee cools in China untouched for countless hours. A coat sleeve brushes against the edge of unnoticed doors. Rivers whisper stones with stories unclaimed. Streets fold themselves beneath the quiet of dawn. Shadows stretch thin across vacant archways. Time exhales where no one listens. Chains of restraint clink softly behind closed doors. Jasmine drifts past empty porches with slow disdain. Sapphire reflections linger where no eyes remain. Silence hums heavier than any voice could sustain. A solitary hand straightens fabric over tempered ribs. Velvet darkness humbles the scattered remnants of pride. City wind threads through iron gratings without question. Unseen footsteps measure distance with discipline, patience. Lantern glow sketches patience over careful movement. Steel hinges creak under measured unseen pressure. Cobblestones murmur beneath boots trained to observe. Ink stains accumulate in diaries nobody reads. Fog diffuses accusations with practiced indifference. Shutters sway with gentle insistence unchallenged. Restraint releases nothing but its own echo. Unclaimed reflections fade beneath morning's hush. Judgment drifts into quiet corners unnoticed. Velvet darkness bows to light without resistance. City wind disperses footprints, leaving only intent. Sapphire glints retreat from windows as dawn arrives. Chains loosen quietly beneath disciplined gaze. Unseen hands fold silence into unbroken resolve. Cigarette embers rest where shadows once lingered. Windows brighten without acknowledgement or apology. Cobblestones remember footsteps but say nothing. Time closes softly over corridors untraveled. Lanterns dim as patience dissolves into day. Fog drifts over cobblestone, dissolving distant lanterns. Boots drag puddles with measured authority. A brass door handle whispers under cautious fingers. Curtains tremble from unseen breezes along narrow corridors. Glass fractures reflections into unreadable hieroglyphs. Smoke curls curl around antique leather-bound tomes. Staircases vanish in a shadowed indifference. Ink pools hesitate in a journal abandoned mid-sentence. Clock hands hesitate, weighing invisible burdens. Windows inhale the first hesitant light of evening. Footsteps echoing halls that never answer. Velvet drapes bow beneath invisible wind. Mirrors hold confessions unclaimed by any voice. Steel rails hum beneath the weight of silence. Candles bend to gravity without ceremony. Whiskey breath lingers where judgment refuses entry. Rain taps punctuation against wrought iron. Time waits without acknowledgement or mercy. Lantern flames sway with discreet reluctance. Cobblestones glint, each fracture recording absence. A pocket watch rests beneath shadowed cups. Fog presses against windows like muted witnesses. Doors sigh under unanswered questions. Ash drifts along corridors with patient rhythm. Chairs memorize the pressure of uninvited bodies. Footprints dissolve before acknowledgement arrives. Locks resist contact, holding secrets without prejudice. Rooftops hum beneath distant unclaimed stones. Footsteps echo in holes that never answer. Velvet drapes bow beneath invisible wind. Mirrors hold confessions unclaimed by any voice. Steel rails hum beneath the weight of silence. Candles bend to gravity without ceremony. Whiskey breath lingers where judgment refuses entry. Rain taps punctuation against wrought iron. Time waits without acknowledgement or mercy. Lantern oil surrenders to darkness. Reluctantly porcelain cups shiver with residual warmth. Piano keys murmur absent melodies. Dust gathers along edges where light refuses to linger. A fountain pen rests atop unsent apologies. Marble floors memorize hesitant trajectories. Shutters rattle with unspoken deliberation. Echoes gather then dissolve into absence. Curtains fold against gravity, unwilling to confess. Footfalls punctuate rooms emptied of expectation. Footsteps echo in halls that never answer. Velvet drapes bow beneath invisible wind. Mirrors hold confessions unclaimed by any voice. Steel rails hum beneath the weight of silence. Candles bend in gravity without ceremony. Whiskey breath lingers where judgment refuses entry. Rain taps punctuation against wrought iron. Time waits without acknowledgement or mercy. Iron gates bend quietly beneath fog scrutiny. Cobblestone alleys remember hesitant porches. Lanterns sigh beneath the burden of attention. Books close softly, resisting disclosure. Window panes ripple with ghosted light. Stairwell swallow sound with discreet discretion. Leather chairs cradle absent bodies with patience. Fog presses against door frames, demanding nothing. Pockets collect invisible fragments of memory. Clock towers observe without commentary. Footsteps echo in halls that never answer. Velvet drapes bow beneath invisible wind. Mirrors hold confessions unclaimed by any voice. Steel rails hum beneath the weight of silence. Candles bend to gravity without ceremony. Whiskey breath lingers where judgment refuses entry. Rain taps punctuation against wrought iron. Time waits without acknowledgement or mercy. Lantern light bends to create new architecture. Shadows lean into corners awaiting permission. Silence thickens with deliberate sophistication. Floorboards articulate hesitations no one observes. Fog drifts beyond thresholds, mapping unseen trajectories. Keys click softly, denying all curiosity. Footsteps finally vanish beneath unclaimed thresholds. Velvet drapes collapse under patient consent. Mirrors release confessions into uninhabited space. Steel rails whisper toward absent horizon. Candles extinguish without ceremony or lament. Whiskey evaporates, leaving only truth behind. Rain dissolves into reflections of forgotten vigilance. Time inclines its head and departs unremarked. Lanterns fade, leaving corridors unguarded. Cobblestones shimmer briefly under emergent light. Windows inhale shadows that no longer linger. Floorboards exhale, releasing decades of restraint. Footsteps dissolve into silent streets of memory. Time closes the ledger with unspoken reverence. Fog drapes lamplight across cracked cobblestones. Ash drifts slowly from our forgotten heart. Brass handles gleam beneath cautious moonlight. Footfalls echo in narrow vacant alleys. A solitary glove rests upon weathered leather. Clock hands shiver against peeling wallpaper. Shadows curve around abandoned stairwells. Silver dust settles over empty chairs. Midnight thunder hums behind iron shutters. Ink stains linger on letters never sent. Approval slips quietly through half-open doors. Echoes bend around polished wood and stone. Whispers drift without audience or witness. Spires pierce fog, untouchable by longing. Every nod dissolves in damp evening air. Steps measure distance across silent marbles. Candle flames shiver with reluctant patience. Mirrors return, glances that never ask. Etches patterns into wrought iron fences. A lone umbrella tilts against bitter gusts. Tarnished brass instruments sigh from open logs. Footbridges murmur beneath unseen travelers. Codes hang heavy with yesterday's humidity. Cobwebs trace corners like forgotten handwriting. Curtains sway over unlit drawing rooms. Gloves scrape against slate and measured rhythm. Doors exhale faint aromas of unclaimed perfume. Steps vanish into alleyways without notice. Approval slips quietly through half-open doors. Echoes bend around polished wood and stone. Whispers drift without audience or witness. Spires pierce fog, untouchable by longing. Every nod dissolves in damp evening air. Steps measure distance across silent marbles. Candle flames shiver with reluctant patience. Mirrors return, glances that never Lantern light fractures across silent piazzas. Staircases climb into shadowed uncertainty. Smoke curls from chimneys with deliberate slowness. Keys turn with a whisper beneath iron gates. Glass glimmers in corners where memories linger. Leather-bound journals press against untouched shelves. Pavement hums beneath solitary carriages. Water drips from roofs in uneven cadence. Time coils beneath cracked stucco ceilings. Windows frame corridors absent of footsteps. Approval slips quietly through half-open doors. Echoes bend around polished wood and stone. Whispers drift without audience or witness. Spirals pierce fog, untouchable by longing. Every nod dissolves in damp evening air. Steps measure distance across silent marbles. Candle flames shiver with reluctant patience. Mirrors return, glances that never ask. Dawn pries light into corners untouched by night. Bridges shiver under hesitant morning mist. Shoelaces tighten around boots with quiet intent. Walls murmur secrets too old to recall. River currents sketch invisible hieroglyphs. Leaves cling stubbornly to frost-slick branches. Lanterns dim against amber clouds retreating. Doorways yawn into untraveled avenues. Halls exhale beneath ceilings heavy with shadow. Steps carry weight without complaint. Approval slips quietly through half-open doors. Echoes bend around polished wood and stone. Whisper drift without audience or witness. Spires pierce fog, untouchable by longing. Every nod dissolves in damp evening air. Steps measure distance across silent marbles. Candle flames shiver with reluctant patience. Mirrors return, glances that never ask. Lanterns collapse under tides of unseen expectation. Ink dries over charts never follow. Footsteps dissolve into fog with precise rhythm. Shutters sway to music only time can recall. Windows reflect corridors that were never entered. Keys rest silent, unclaimed by fingers of hurry. Approval drifts past unlatched gates unnoticed. Echoes twist around marble and soot. Whispers hover, never reaching ears waiting. Fog lifts from spires into absent skies. Every glance dispersed beneath waking streets. Steps echo across halls with tempered resolve. Candles bend toward corners unobserved. Mirrors offer glances that ask nothing. Over stone with careful patience. Fog dissolves into streets long abandoned. Shadows fold beneath door frames unguarded. Footsteps linger briefly, then vanish. Lanterns extinguish without farewell. Time records nothing beneath quiet rules. Our coils along, iron fire escapes hesitant. Rain fractures lantern light across cobblestone. A brass key trembles beneath gloved fingers. Marble steps echo with absent footsteps. Cigarette smoke hovers in forgotten corridors. Clock hands hesitate above cracked plaster walls. Leather-bound journals absorb unspoken reckonings. Street puddles shimmer with distant neon echoes. Curtains sway without consent from a vacant apartment. Shadows lean inward, studying deliberate silence. Approval drifts like embers across midnight avenues. Every knob becomes a ledger of quiet restraint. Hands tighten around invisible anchors of pride. Footfalls answer only to hidden compasses. Embers of memory is his deliberate extinguishing. Windows reveal nothing, yet observe everything. Breath counts seconds in rooms without witnesses. Time folds into itself beneath solitary gazes. Steel rails hum beneath a suspended tram car. Ash falls in measured patterns across worn parquet. Velvet chairs absorb hesitant confessions. Thunder rehearses over rooftops without applause. Ink dries slowly upon letters never mailed. A faint reflection lingers inside polished doorknobs. Doorways frame absence with refined geometry. Shuttered blinds fracture incoming lamplight. Embers coil into miniature constellations above the heart. Fog drifts into alleyways unclaimed by foot traffic. Approval drifts like embers across midnight avenues. Every knob becomes a ledger of quiet restraint. Hands tighten around invisible anchors of pride. Footfalls answer only to hidden compasses. Embers of memory resist deliberate extinguishing. Windows reveal nothing, yet observe everything. Breath counts seconds in rooms without witnesses. Time folds into itself beneath solitary gazes. Copper doorknobs absorb restless intentions. Rain etches fleeting hieroglyphs on the cobblestones. A pocket watch measures patience beneath tailored sleeves. Smoke curls upward, dissolving into vaulted ceilings. Mirrors avoid eye contact in dimly lit hallways. Candle flames flirt with shadows retreating cautiously. Leather coats gather moisture in imperceptible arcs. Footprints vanish before daylight interrogates them. Brass railings hum beneath unclaimed weight. City sighs softly beneath distant elevated trains. Approval drifts like embers across midnight avenues. Every knob becomes a ledger of quiet restraint. Hands tighten around invisible anchors of pride. Footfalls answer only to hidden compasses. Embers of memory resist deliberate extinguishing. Windows reveal nothing, yet observe everything. Breath counts seconds in rooms without witnesses. Time folds into itself beneath solitary gazes. Lantern glow flirts with condensation on glass panes. Empty chairs await decisions never delivered. Cobblestone alleys whisper of unpracticed departures. A fountain pen resting crystallized in hesitation. Shadows stretch long beneath ornate balcony railings. Footfalls measure restraint against wooden floorboards. Velvet drapes tremble as wind negotiates passage. Reflections hover briefly in brass sconces. Rainwater gathers in unseen vessels across the terrace. Evening exhales slowly, leaving no trace of consent. Approval drifts like embers across midnight avenues. Every knob becomes a ledger of quiet restraint. Hands tighten around invisible anchors of pride. Footfalls answer only to hidden compasses. compasses. Embers of memory resist deliberate extinguishing. Windows reveal nothing, yet observe everything. Breath counts seconds in rooms without witnesses. Time folds into itself beneath solitary gazes. Lantern light maps unclaimed territory. Velvet shadows crawl beneath door frames unnoticed. Glass shivers beneath imperceptible drafts of evening. Candlelight folds patience into measured intervals. Stairs inhale weightless departures without acknowledgement. Marble corridors listen yet never respond. Approval drifts like embers across midnight avenues. Every knob becomes a ledger of quiet restraint. Hands tighten around invisible anchors of pride. Footfalls answer only to hidden compasses. Embers of memory resist deliberate extinguishing. Windows reveal nothing, yet observe everything. Breathe, count seconds in rooms without witnesses. Time folds into itself beneath solitary gazes. Fog thins over cobblestones untouched by expectation. Lanterns flicker one final time before surrender. Patent shoes pause at thresholds unguarded. Clock hands rest without verdict. Shadows dissolved into early morning clarity. Street light fractures under rain's quiet insistence. Leather gloves cradle frost along deserted avenues. Clock hands hesitate on oxidized copper faces. Fog slides beneath iron railings with cautious patience. Mirrors and shuttered storefronts hold secrets unsaid. Cigarette smoke curls around brass door handles. Footsteps vanish in the puddles that refuse reflection. Curtains tremble against whispered drives from broken lands. A silver pocket compass spins without a lead. Shadowed eyes linger where no gaze expects reply. Judgment drifts like embers across fractured pavement. Every knot accumulates weight upon invisible shoulders. Restrained hums beneath polished collarbones. Silhouettes dissolve in corners of abandoned halls. Silent approval tastes faintly of iron and ash. A lone saxophone bends toward uncertain mercy. Time leans carefully along the horizon's jagged edge. Discipline moves unclaimed, unobserved, unbroken. Rain etches patterns over worn trench coats. Brass keys rattle inside drawers that have forgotten locks. Stairwells inhale footsteps and exhale solitude. Lanterns flicker above marble floors, undecided. Unsent messages curl beneath envelopes, brittle resolve. Wind traces calligraphy across abandoned balconies. Pocket watches tick beneath tailored sleeves with silent rhythm. Steam rises from puddles like ephemeral specters. Doors hinge quietly under gravity's watchful eye. Cobblestones hum beneath careful, solitary stride. Judgment drifts like embers across fractured pavement. Every knot accumulates weight upon invisible shoulders. The strain hums beneath polished collarbones. Silhouettes dissolve in corners of abandoned halls. Silent approval tastes faintly of iron and ash. A lone saxophone bends toward uncertain mercy. Time leans carefully along the horizon's jagged edge. Discipline moves unclaimed, unobserved, unbroken. Candle flames waver above untouched decanters. Thunder rehearses quietly behind slated rooftops. Scars migrate beneath fabric's heavy folds. Ink pens rest near unopened ink dark letters. Dust drifts along sills where forgotten conversations linger. Railings shiver under hesitant footsteps. A coat collar rises against reluctant dawn. Windows capture fragments of unrecorded departures. Coffee cools in porcelain cups, undisturbed. Evening exhales beneath chimneys in different smoke. Judgment drifts like embers across fractured pavement. Every knot accumulates weight upon invisible shoulders. Restrained hums beneath polished collarbones. Silhouettes dissolve in corners of abandoned halls. Silent approval tastes faintly of iron and ash. Lone saxophone bends toward uncertain mercy. Time leans carefully along the horizon's jagged edge. Discipline moves unclaimed, unobserved, unbroken. Fog coils over empty benches along riverbank. Shoelaces tighten without ceremony or witness. Steel beams hum with distant, patient echoes. Overcoats brush against walls with deliberate caution. Doorways frame exits that no one claims. Gloves conceal pulses that refuse indulgence. Keys clink in pockets of restrained anticipation. Lamplight trembles without attention. Footfalls fade into avenues that never respond. Bell towers mark hours indifferent to intention. Judgment drifts like embers across fractured pavement. Every knot accumulates weight upon invisible shoulders. The strain hums beneath polished collarbones. Silhouettes dissolve in corners. Midnight corridor, swallowing footsteps. Sodium Street is fried pavement. Tailored overcoat draped upon weary shoulders. Rainwater tracing calligraphy along marble roads. Clockwork heartbeat echoing inside ribcage. Vacant apartment, breathing stale tobacco. Fog pressing softly against iron balconies. Photographs faded beneath tarnished frames. Stationary compass trembling without how they raise darkness, golden around discipline. Unspoken verdict hovering above collarbones. You the trumpet weeping beside gutter, scattered coins resting with a waistcoat pocket. Concrete skyline offering neither shelter nor exit. Bruised knuckles hidden beneath leather gloves. Distant locomotive wailing beyond harbor. Sparks dissolving against drizzle. Candle wax cooling beside crystal tumbler. Unwritten letters sleeping inside briefcase. Elevator cables groaning beneath penthouse. Silver cufflink catching fractured neon. Cigarette ember hovering near window pane. Dust-laden bookshelf guarding forgotten journals. Tidal wind rattling rusted fire escape. Motionless horizon, staring past ambition. Granite statues, witnessing private reckoning. Shallow breathing, measured against metronome. Amber liquor reflecting solitary silhouette. Cracked mirror, studying tight jawline. Answered telephone vibrating upon mahogany. City sirens braiding restless insomnia. Faint organ chords lingering within chapel. Cobblestone alley swallowing polished footsteps. Newsprint headlines bleeding bloody. Steam rising gently from subway grades. Ivory chessboard awaiting calculated sacrifice. Worn found pen balanced beside parchment. Harbor tide shifting beneath anchored vessels. Frosted glass muting distant laughter. Velour curtains guarding shuttered penthouse. Rigid posture masking fractured resolve. Pedro rafters arching above isolation. Tarnished pocket watch marking stalled decades. Torn your sacker sewn bending toward twilight. Polished brooks pausing beside threshold. Windshield carving etchings across cheekbone. Faded marquees flickering uncertain promise. Smoldering ash collapsing upon granite. Morning haze settling over silent boulevard. Espresso cooling beside untouched saucer. staircase spiraling towards skylight. Brief sunrise glinting across cuff. Threadbare memory rustling beneath conscience. Shuttered storefront reflecting restrained gaze. Passing strangers offering vacant glances. Distant freighter horn rolling across bay. Static skyline mirroring in a stalement. Great applause dissolving into vapor. Ivory dominoes collapsing across. Felt tight and cravat. Brushing scale pulsing, widening hammering. Timekeeper gears turning without hesitation. Distant skyline bowing, been awakening sky. Lantern glow revealing narrow passage. Discard expectations drifting toward the shoreline. Steel backbone rising despite undertow. Quite defined settling within my row. Gravel path, bending paths washed out. Uncharted latitude, whispering invitation. For a momentum, carved from bedrock. Resolute stride, cutting across crosswalk. Cleared vision piercing, lingering small. Measured cadence, silencing doubt. Where the spirit anchored beyond turbulence. Open gateway, framing broad expanse. Low brass resonance, affirming passage. Enduring presence eclipsing former pearlescence. Sunrise gilding what? Land on fractured midnight in the brittle fragments. Cobblestones glisten beneath a hesitant drizzle. Velvet smoke curls through shuttered corridors. Footfalls echo inside empty polished stairwell. Time presses thin beneath cracked windowsills. Iron gates hum low beneath passing trolleys. Candlelight bends across untouched mahogany. Faded letters tremble inside a leather satchel. Shadows linger with patient silent inquiry. Glass vibrates faintly where memories linger. Every glance leaves frost across a tailored shoulder. Echoes of expectation clatter on distant rooftops. Approval drifts through alleys like unclaimed coins. Embers of acknowledgement fade in wet gutters. Silhouettes observe folded hands indifferent. Ties tighten against shoulders unexamined. Saxophone sighs beneath fog lampposts. Feet trace past, carved from unseen verdicts. Rain inscribes hieroglyphs on fractured pavement. Inkwells remain sealed inside untouched journals. Brass fixtures murmur under slow patient drafts. Cobwebs braid corners of an abandoned study. Thunder rehearses softly above vacant piazzas. Marble floors swallow echoes of solitary boots. Windows watch without judgment or reply. A clock exhales beneath fading wallpaper patterns. Glow gloves, clasp envelopes never meant for dispatch. Lantern oil burns reluctant into trembling shadow. Every glance leaves frost across a tailored shoulder. Echoes of expectation clatter on distant rooftops. Approval drifts through alleys like unclaimed coins. Embers of acknowledgement fade in wet gutters. Silhouettes observe folded hands indifferent. Ties tighten against shoulders unexamined. Saxophone sighs beneath fog lamp posts. Feet trace paths carved from unseen verdicts. Curtains bow under the weight of forgotten nights. Fountains hum hollow beneath early morning fog. Boots scrape silently along worn pocket panels. Silver goblets glint in the absence of ceremony. Staircases inhale shadows without reservation. Pans hover over unsent confessions. Mirrors tilt away from hesitant reflections. Brickwork shivers under passing trains' rhythm. Ash drifts softly across cold hearthstones. Lanterns flicker with distant, unclaimed anticipation. Every glance leaves frost across a tailored shoulder. Echoes of expectation clatter on distant rooftops. Approval drifts through alleys like unclaimed coins. Embers of acknowledgement fade in wet gutters. Silhouettes observe folded hands indifferent. Ties tighten against shoulders unexamined. Saxophone sighs beneath fog lamp posts. Feet trace paths carved from unseen verdicts. Morning infiltrates with delicate colorless hands. Footsteps hesitate along misted cobbled avenues. A pocket watch sighs beneath the weight of hours. Stained curtains ripple under whispered ventilation. Glass jars hold shadows unmasked and unclaimed. Railings shiver beneath absent palms. Letters curl inside drawers invisible to all. Tremors trace veins beneath stiff polished cuffs. Faint lanterns relinquish light to pale walls. Streets exhale with patience untouched by expectation. Every glance leaves frost across a tailored shoulder. Echoes of expectation clatter on distant rooftops. Approval drifts through alleys like unclaimed coins. Embers of acknowledgement fade in wet gutters. Silhouettes observe folded hands indifferent. Ties tighten against shoulders unexamined. Saxophone sighs beneath fog lamp posters. Feet trace paths carved from unseen verdicts. Lantern glow sketches paths that vanish instantly. Cobblestone shift beneath hesitant souls. Glass murmurs secrets the wind refuses to carry. Embers solitude flare without sound. Time bends over the edge of polished mahogany. Shadows stretch with deliberation and intent. Every glance leaves frost across a tailored shoulder. Echoes of expectation clatter on distant rooftops. Approval drifts through alleys like unclaimed coins. Embers of acknowledgement fade in wet gutters. Silhouettes observe folded hands indifferent. Ties tighten against shoulders unexamined. Saxophone sighs beneath fog lamp posts. Feet trace paths carved from unseen verdicts. Dissolves across avenues, abandoned by attention. Lantern dim, leaving only memories. Quiet hum, shutters sway with unspoken deliberation. Cobblestones absorb the weight of unseen departures. Footsteps vanish beneath a sky unclaimed. steps across iron balconies, restless copper gutters hum beneath heaven light. A tail coat absorbs distant rain without complaint. Whiskey swirls in crystal, amber like silent verdicts. Footsteps dissolve into alley shadows unclaimed. Curtains shiver against the hum of a night fan. Time scratches edge lines and the mountains under me. Letters remain unopened, ink settling like dust. Steam curls from garden grates along cobblestones, reflection bent in fractured glass, yielding nothing. Change round that improved plastic. Pine roadies cloven to structured corridors. And the lean light against invisible. Love is cut briefly, surrendering without sound. Restraint, distant horns echo over wet asphalt arteries. Horizons tilted, indifference with measured pace. Shadows gather patience beneath unwavering street lamps. Cigarette haze drifts through narrow vacant halls. Marble floors mirror imperceptible movement above. Slide across counters, metallic whispering. The clock exhales evenly, indifferent to desire. Smoke lingers where absence left its mark. Leather-bound volumes breathe beneath careful fingers. Pavement gleams with borrowed light from distant lanterns. Stairs creak like muted confessions to empty ceiling. Silver cufflinks glint with deliberate detachment. Rain sketches silent calligraphy against iron gates. Strange rattle quiet behind closed vestibules. Silence folds itself into structured corridors. Judgment leans light against invisible walls. Embers flare briefly, surrendering without sound. Glows concealed tremors beneath tempered restraint. Distant horns echo over wet asphalt arteries. Horizons still toward indifference with measured pace. Shadows gather patience beneath unwavering street lamps. Lantern flames bow under fog-laden arches. Velvet chairs cradle unclaimed presence in dim light. Steam rises from drains like slow whisper secrets. Keys tangle with faint echoes of unspoken contracts. Footfalls navigate corridors without acknowledgement. Brass handles glint with silent authority. Curtains billow against straps of absent voices. Ink dries over letters that will never traverse hands. Glass panes reflect movements that never occurred. Thunder hums along rooftops without solicitation. Change rattle quieter behind closed vestibules. Silence folds itself into structured corridors. Judgment leans light against invisible walls. Embers flare briefly, surrendering without sound. Gloves conceal tremors beneath tempered restraint. Distant horns echo over wet asphalt arteries. Horizons tilted and brenna's with measured pace. Shadows gather patience beneath unwavering street lamps. Morning seats between ironwork, careful made in calcific empty cools within porcelain, untouched by motion. Overcoat straight figures that will not convene. Cobblestones glimmer faintly beneath early light. Windows refuse to expose interiors without consent. Leather soles clave lightly across vacant staircases. Keys rest in bowls untouched by human intent. Smoke dissipates over thresholds without acknowledgement. Letters remain unread, their weight undisturbed. Lanterns fade as light edges the horizon subtly. Chains rattle quietly behind closed vestibules. Silence forces itself into structured corridors. Embers lay read against invisible walls. As compass flare briefly, surrendering without sound. Rocks conceal tremors beneath tempered restraint. Distant horns echo over wet asphalt arteries. Horizons tilt toward indifference with measured pace. Shadows gather patience beneath unwavering street lamps. Lanterns retreat beneath fog, slow insistence. Timing sails through unlatched windows and silent halls. Footsteps falter across thresholds without recognition. Iron gates whisper over voids unclaimed. Reflections dissolve into misted air and speaking. Leather-bound limbs await hands that never arrive. Chains release their echo into vacant vestibules. Silence settles within structured corridors. Judgment retreats behind walls unseen. Embers vanish into damp asphalt with gentle resolve. Gloves reveal the tremor, only the night remembers distant horns. Fade indifferent dawn, horizons flattened, measured, quiet shadows linger patiently beneath empty street lamps. Fog lifts across siren balconies without disturbance. Crystal glasses reflect light from early sun. Footsteps pause, suspend between passing motion. Smoke drips lightly toward unseen chimney. Windows brighten subtly without acknowledgement. Time closes its ledger, unread, unshallowed. Fracture on a wrought iron railing. Cinders drift from a heart untouched for days. Fog coils around forgotten stairwells. Whispering ink stains linger unfolded, unopened correspondence. Cobbled alleys echo slow, deliberate footsteps. Velvet curtains shiver beneath a reluctant breeze. Brass fixtures catch fleeting sparks from street lamps. Leather gloves cradle a time-worn photograph. Shadowed arches frame a horizon undecided. Clock hands tremble without ceremony. Silent acknowledgements gather beneath dim awnings. Every gesture weigh heavier than spoken syllables. Windows mirror hesitant silhouettes dissolving in the night. Saxophones hum notes neither claimed nor rejected. Cigarette smoke sketches elegies across polished floors. Footfalls measure confessions no one will receive. Lanterns flicker over corners of unvoiced devotion. Horizons inclining toward absence without complaint. Rain slides down glass pane like hesitant promises. A pen rests upon attachment, trembling with restraint. Cobweb chandelier sway in patient abandonment. Doorways harbor murmurs of unclaimed desire. Shadowed fountains drip with calculated patience. Staircases ascend without expectation or audience. Bricks retain echoes of conversations never started. Curtain rods tremble beneath unseen insistence. Faded rugs hold footprints of fleeting intentions. Lantern reflections fracture into silent understanding. Silent acknowledgements gather beneath. Every gesture weighs heavier than spoken syllables. Windows mirror hesitant silhouettes dissolving into night. Saxophones hum notes neither claimed nor rejected. Cigarette smoke sketches elegies across polished floors. Footfalls measure confessions no one will receive. Lantern flicker over corners of unvoiced devotions. Horizons inclined toward absence without complaint. Cobblestones glisten with remnants of departed footsteps. Fireplaces sigh beneath empty mantelpieces. Iron gates resist gentle coaxing from dusk winds. Crystal decanters glint with unshared warmth. Overhead lamps cast fragmented geometry on warm parquet. Faded portraits of art gaze from impatient walls. Steam rises from cold cups forgotten beside books. Door hinges release quiet complaints into darkness. Tiled floors retain memory of silent ceremonies. Windows frame a sky unmarked by expectation. Silent acknowledgements gather beneath dim morning. Every gesture weighs heavier than spoken syllables. Windows mirror hesitant silhouettes dissolving into night. Textured phones hum notes neither claimed nor rejected. Cigarette smoke sketches elegies across polished floors. Footfalls measure confessions no one will receive. Lanterns flicker over corners of unvoiced devotion. Horizons inclined toward absence without complaint. Night exhales slowly beneath iron railing. Letters rustle without witness, carrying restraint. Shadows conspire to protect unspoken truths. Candlelight quivers in rooms without visitors. Lanterns trace passages of careful deliberation. Halls inhale the absence of articulated emotion. Silent acknowledgements gather beneath dim morning. Every gesture weighs heavier than spoken syllables. Windows mirror hesitant silhouettes dissolving in the night. Saxophones hum notes neither claimed nor rejected. Cigarette smoke sketches elegies across polished floors. Footfalls measure confessions no one will receive. Lanterns flicker over corners of unvoiced devotion. Horizons inclined toward absence without complaint. Moonlight recedes from corridors of patient resolve. Fog lifts to reveal thresholds untouched by a voice. Leather-bound journals remain unopened. Faithful windows welcome morning without interrogation. Time closes its ledger on hesitant gestures. Phantom smoke drifts over parquet floors, twisting like memory. Rain sketches rivulets across cobblestones, untouched by shoes. A single glass tilts beneath the weight of unspoken decision. Shadows crawl along walls, hesitant as quiet confession. Cinders high and I not draped, glowing with secret, never void. Time bends across the ceiling, folding hours into silence. Faded photographs linger on shelves, edges curled with patience. Footsteps echo down narrow corridors, unanswered, precise. The air tastes of soot and ink, heavy with lingering thought. Curtains shiver against a window pane that refuses reflection. Each notion folds beneath invisible scrutiny. Moments tremble, burdened with imagined consequence. Echoes trace paths only imagination can chart. Eyes measure horizons no one will traverse. Intentions gather dust along forgotten ledges. Desires whisper through narrow streets without response. Caution drapes itself over shoulders like warmer. Thoughts carve channels in that the daylight cannot read. Steel gratings hum beneath careful pacing. A fountain pens rhythm across unclaimed paper. Fog drifts between lampposts, deliberate, unhurried. Keys jingle, rehearsing exits that may never be used. Scars travel invisible paths beneath tailored sleep. An ashtray sighs beneath the weight of lingering hesitation. Mirrored surfaces refuse admission, holding secrets intact. Footbridges creak, bearing unspoken deliberations. Candles burn low, casting angular questions on wall. A distant train hums through tunnels lined with unseen judgment. Notions folds beneath invisible scrutiny. Moments tremble, burdened with imagined consequence. Echoes trace paths only imagination can chart. Eyes measure horizons no one will traverse. Intentions gather dust along forgotten ledges. Desires whisper through narrow streets without response. Caution drapes itself over shoulders like wool armor. Thoughts carve channels in night the daylight cannot reach. Windows fog over from breasts that never escape. Leather-bound volumes sigh under callous fingertips. Midnight fans stir air thick with half-formed regrets. Stairwells whisper to souls that never rest. Ink stains linger on fingertips, unclaimed and persistent. Lamp filaments hum beneath shadows of absent witnesses. Brick walls swallow muffled deliberations whole. An empty chair leans toward the sound of imagination. Curtains sway without wind, framing suspended hesitation. Chandeliers tremble, holding fractured reflection. Each notion folds beneath invisible scrutiny. Moments tremble, burdened with imagined consequence. Echoes trace paths only imagination can chart. Eyes measure horizons no one will traverse. Intentions gather dust along forgotten ledges. Desires whisper through narrow streets without response. Caution drapes itself over shoulders like wool armor. Thoughts carve channels in night the daylight cannot reach. Cobblestones glisten beneath beneath moonlight's measured gaze, a journal eyes open, blank pages brimming with possibility. Cigarette embers curl in her hair thick with anticipation. Doors creak slowly, revealing thresholds never crossed. Street lamps hum as if weighing decisions silently. Rivers murmur beneath bridges, carrying unseen contemplation. Shadows lengthen across floors untouched by certainty. Coffee cools beside a chair left waiting patient. The wind sighs through empty alleyways, deliberate knowing end. Fog drifts swallowing streets in hushed deliberation. Each notion folds beneath invisible scrutiny. Moments tremble, burdened with imagined consequence. Echoes trace paths only imagination can chart. Eyes measure horizons no one will traverse. Intentions gather dust along forgotten ledges. Desires whisper through narrow streets without response. Caution drapes itself over shoulders like wool armor. Thoughts carve channels in night that daylight cannot reach. Lantern light flickers over corridors unclaimed. Silence hums beneath footsteps that hesitate. Shutters rattle with questions no one will answer. Brass handles warm under careful palms. Time dissolves between breath and pulse. Intangible, deliberate. May reflect choices that never existed outside thought. Scrutiny folds across moments imagined. Consequence trembles beneath unspoken intentions. Past went through corridors, only the mind explores horizons. Still beneath watchful unseen eyes. Ledges cradle ambitions never acted. Whispers drift through night streets abandoned. Armor drapes lightly over shoulders waiting for dawn. Night channels carve themselves into memory's quiet ledger. Fog lifts slowly, revealing streets untouched by certainty. Glass catches morning, fracture yet whole. Footsteps pause at thresholds that demand nothing. Ash and smoke settle, final deliberate. Time exhale, leaving memory intact, silent and contained.